Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. We talk about horror movies on this show, and in this episode, we are tackling a brand new release, probably the biggest new horror release of the year so far, and that is Jordan Peele's Us, his sophomore film, his second film, coming after Get Out, and we're going to start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers somewhere in the middle, and that's what we're going to do. So yeah, just a quick thing before we get to the movie itself. The last episode of Screams After Midnight disappeared about 24 hours after it went up because a copyright strike was put on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're on YouTube or you're looking at the, if you're on YouTube, because obviously it's still in the audio feed. If you want to go listen to that episode without the video, just to like hear it just now, it's on the audio feed, Screams After Midnight podcast feed. But if you're on YouTube and you're thinking, man, it's weird, there's not been an episode in 2 weeks. There was one, and hopefully it'll be back soon. We're disputing the claim, obviously, but, you know, that's what it is. So,
yeah, it was my bad. I shouldn't have been playing the Super Bowl in the background.
Yes. So someone put a copyright strike on us two sitting here talking with nothing else going on, yes. That'll hold up in court.
Yeah, to be fair, there have been other videos of people talking before, so I guess maybe that there's a... It's not original,
is what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't think of this. That's true.
Two white guys talking to each other. Yeah, that feels like that's been done before.
Oh god. Anyway, so good about Us. Us is a film about... Why are you laughing? Is it because it's a film? Is that why you're laughing? Because you thought that was my point?
I like the idea of someone watching it and being like, oh, it was a film. That's what they're talking about.
Okay, so Tim, so Us rather. So Us, the premise of Us is that we have duplicates of this family, our main family, who's headed by Lupita Nyong'o, who plays Adelaide. She's the main character. Her and her family, duplicates of their family show up when they're on summer vacation. They've got a summer house, near the beachfront, all that, and
Santa Cruz.
Thank you. Which was the same as Lost Boys. I've heard everyone talk about how it's like Lost Boys. That's Santa Cruz. Hey, whatever. Yeah. But is there a guy playing a saxophone in his underwear? I think not. No. So,
and it sucks because we could have gotten two of them.
That was actually a good joke, Tab. That was a good joke. So these duplicates show up, and this obviously I'm just taking all this from the trailer. This is the general premise, and of course they're dangerous and psychotic, and it's like, okay, who are these people? Why are there duplicates? What's going on? And that's basically all I can say without going into spoilers. So there you go. That is the movie film. So, Timothy, did you enjoy... This is a loaded question because I've seen opinions all over the place for this one since it came out on Friday. Yeah. So, Tim, did you enjoy Us?
I will say it's not a perfect movie, but it's damn close. It's real damn close. I absolutely love this movie. I think it's a masterpiece. I only saw it once, but I am like jonesing to go see it again. I thought it was fantastic. How about you? What are your thoughts?
The word masterpiece was just thrown out there in the opening statement. Oh dear.
I'm gonna stick by it.
I didn't like it as much as you. I can say that safely right out of the gate.
Okay.
Tell
the people why you're wrong.
I think this is exceptionally directed. I think his handling of suspense is fantastic. I've heard mixed opinions on the music choices. I think most of the music actually worked really well for me when it was used. I think Lupita Nyong'o's performance as both versions of herself, fantastic. Yeah. The movies get some good comic relief in places. I like that too. I do have to admit, though, the plot kind of falls apart for me a little bit at the end. And I think the other thing, and this isn't necessarily a problem in and of itself, if it didn't matter that much, but I did guess a major thing of the ending in the opening scene, and then it happened exactly the way I thought about it as. The way I thought about, okay, I bet this is what happened here. And sure enough, at the ending, it was exactly that. which would have been fine if there was like an extra element on it or something, or an extra thing or whatever. But it almost felt like no, there was no attempt to like assume the audience might get that or whatever. It was just here it is.
I've heard that complaint from people before, which I mean, it if that affects a movie for you, that's fine. Like for me, I don't know. I guess like unless it's like like if you're seeing like a Shyamalan movie or something, there's going to be a twist, or if people are talking about a movie like, oh man, there's a big twist or something, like I don't know. I usually am not like thinking about that that much. Like for me, I'm sorry.
I think it depends on what type of twist it is and what type of like the way it's handled. Like if because sometimes it can be presented in a way it's like, we knew a lot of you were going to figure this out before we got here, right? So it's more of like a confirmation of it rather than like a got ya moment, right? A gotcha,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas at the end of this, I kind of felt like, no, I'm supposed to be surprised right now and be like, whoa, that's just flipped the tables on me and done all these different things and.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get that. I mean, it's like I wouldn't necessarily dispute like someone feeling that way, but for me, I don't know, maybe I was just like too sucked into the story that I wasn't really like thinking ahead or something. Because when they do get to the part you're talking about, like I wouldn't say that I was like, oh, I saw that coming, but I also wouldn't say like I was surprised either. I guess I was just kind of in the moment, and yeah, it didn't really like affect it that much. But I'm also not really like care that much about spoilers, or I don't know, if something's like really good, I can just shut my brain off and like go along for the ride. But I think the two kind of big complaints I hear about it, and I think you kind of touched on both of them, is that, and then I think like some people have specific like plot problems or stuff that they didn't like, or questions that they had, which I think is very fair and valid, because there is definitely like a lot of stuff after you watch it where you're like, well, wait a minute, like you kind of want to pick apart like the mythology they set up, like you're like, all right, so if that's true, then what about this, or how did this happen, or whatever. But I think it's totally valid, but for me it's just like everything else worked so well that I honestly don't care. Like
no, I get that, and it's something that I often like bring up when people have complaints about a movie, where I'm just so sucked into it, I don't really care about all these things.
Yeah.
I do have like some. I think where this movie goes in its last act, which is a really extreme place.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't necessarily have a problem with those ideas. I almost, it's funny actually, because Jordan Peele's about to be the new narrator on the Twilight Zone,
Yes.
and I almost think this feels like a Twilight Zone episode.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And almost wonder if like what it does in the back half would work better in a Twilight Zone, where it's a shorter thing, because I feel like in a movie when you're doing like a full 2 hour, because this is a 2 hour horror movie, right? It's just a long horror movie. I feel like there's this expectation to have more of an explanation. Whereas Twilight Zone, you get 25 minutes to 30 minutes. At the end of it, you leave it in this big mystery thing, and you're like, oh, okay, what was really that about, or whatever. And you forgive that they didn't explain a lot of things. And it's not so much that I want everything explained, because I don't necessarily. I actually think my bigger problem with where it goes in the back half of the film is more that I don't feel like the first half of it feels like it's connected to it. And like how do I explain this? I feel like the tone and the way that the first half of the film feels doesn't feel like it leads to what the second half of the film is in terms of mood, if that makes sense.
I think, I mean, I don't know if maybe this is what you're getting at, but like the first half or whatever feels like I was just thinking about like more like kind of close, I guess, maybe
personal.
Smaller, more contained. Yeah,
I'd say personal. It feels like a personal horror story, the first half, yeah.
Yeah. And then it kind of expands outward, and it's more, there's farther reaching effects and stuff, which, I can definitely see that it being an issue. What's kind of funny is I've heard like complaints both ways, where I've heard people say like, oh, they don't explain enough, and then I've heard other people say like, oh, they explain too much, like, which I think is kind of funny.
I think it's a balance in it. I think arguably either way would be better. Like,
yeah,
they went too far but not far enough to make it like a proper explanation. but but not explain anything would have maybe been better. Just leave it be completely mysterious. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that too much. I do honestly wonder if this will work better for me in a second viewing, where I know where it's going in the second half, and I can sort of go in with that kind of expectation. But the first half felt really personal, like I said. It felt like a family who's going to be tormented and terrorized, and how they sort of survive through that. And it turned into this much bigger thing, which we'll talk about in spoilers, because it is full on spoilers. But I mean, as much as I'm getting my sort of general feelings, and those are the negative feelings. I don't think it's a bad movie. I actually think it's still a very well done movie. It's just very well directed. The suspense is very good. The handling of direction is very good.
Yeah, I'd say like,
great.
Yeah, I mean, I think I already liked Peele a lot from Get Out, and so I had high hopes for this movie. But after seeing this, I'm just like so like. What do the kids say? Like you're a stan or whatever. Is that like when you're a fan of someone?
Yeah, if you're yes, yes. It means you'll stick up for them as a fan, no matter what.
Oh, okay.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I love Peele, man. He's just like a dude that gets it. Like, 'cause he seems like such like a horror fan, but sometimes that doesn't always make the best horror director. A la maybe your Rob Zombies, for example. But like he's such like a dude that's like. He has such a love for the genre, but also like he's such a good storyteller and just has such a great way with like staging a scene. And I don't know if he's just lucky with the actors he gets or if he's able to bring out these performances, but everyone was like I thought fantastic in this movie, like especially like the family, you already mentioned I forget her name, but the main
Lupita,
yeah, she's fantastic. And then the who played her husband, was it
Winston Duke?
Winston Duke. He was phenomenal. I liked him a lot. And I was surprised that there's a lot of, like you said, really good suspense. Like I thought there's a lot of like really good, legitimately creepy scenes. But I was also surprised that how funny it was. But I don't think anyone would call this like a comedy or anything.
No, it's got comic relief.
And it's different though, like like the complaints we had with like last year's like Halloween and stuff, where the comedy kind of takes you out of the scene. This is all feels like whenever there was a funny moment, it felt like natural for the characters to be doing this or saying this. Like it never was all right, let's stop everything, all the tensions out the window, like turning to the camera and winking at you. Like it never felt like that. It all felt like very natural, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, even the kids were good. In fact, the daughter, the tethered, that's the evil version, the tethered, that's what we're calling them. I thought the daughter was maybe my favourite of the tethered, like, of the family.
She was great.
She was really good. I think the acting's great, music choice is great, direction's solid. It has a clear sense of style right at the start. It has this operatic music that comes in as the titles are coming up. It almost feels like a 70s movie, the way the music comes in, with this big soundtrack. It feels very foreboding. And then, the suspense is handled very well. Like, the opening scene is like a flashback to when the main character's a kid, and we're walking down the pier, and there's, the boardwalk, and it's like there's nothing actually creepy happening, but just the way it's shot, the way that the camera's behind her shoulder as her parents are kind of arguing, it feels like something bad's going to happen soon, even though there's no reason to suspect that in terms of content. It's just, it gives you this sense of what you should be feeling, despite the fact that there's nothing really obvious happening yet. And that's just good direction. Peele's a fantastic director. And, I think his story, even if there's some problems with it, once you peel back the layers, there's definitely stuff in there. I mean, the movie has something to say. Much like Get Out, there's definitely a social commentary in here. It's very different social commentary than Get Out. Get Out had obviously a very specific topic, which was about liberal racism. This is a little bit different, and we'll get into that in spoilers. I feel like talking about it now would be spoiling stuff, but
definitely. What I think is interesting though is where Get Out was great, but it had like a very I don't think anyone would really doubt what the kind of social commentary on that was. What I like about this is there's like a couple of different things you can take away from it, and I've seen people like saying stuff about like, oh, like this is what I got from it, and someone was like, oh, actually I think it was like more like this, and I think that's interesting.
Joe, what's funny to me about our reactions to this is that I want to take you back to a film you watched last year called Cam, where at the end of it, I was really positive because of all the subtext, and you liked it, but you had a bit of a complaint that the ending didn't make complete logical sense.
Oh, sure.
And I feel like this is almost with flipped positions on this, where I feel like the ending maybe should be a bit more clearer or have more things that make sense. But this does have a lot of subtext, and that seems to have, maybe not just the subtext, but that seems to have obviously helped with your enjoyment. And I loved the subtext. The subtext was there. And it, it's brimming with it. Actually, see, before we talk about the rest of the movie and stuff, I want to just mention the opening shot is someone watching. Let's say this is when she's a kid, so it's in the 80s, right? And
86, a very good year.
86. I wonder what year Tim was born in. And she's watching TV, but there's like some VHS tapes at either side, and I noted what some of these were. Nightmare on Elm Street was there. Chud was there.
I noticed that.
Yeah. The Goonies was there, and then one that really made me laugh was The Right Stuff. Not because I have any attachment to that. I've seen it, but it's not because I've got any attachment to that, but because in Captain Marvel earlier this month,
that's right.
That's the one she picks up when she's in the Blockbuster. She picks up The Right Stuff and looks at it, and I thought, that's weird. The Right Stuff VHS has appeared in 2 movies in the same month. New movies. That's not funny.
Oh, that's really funny. I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love like it's such an easy way to like make a horror fan happy. But I just love seeing like those old school like boxes and stuff. And I do feel like though it's not like super overdone. Like it's not like other points in the movie like they're really pointing stuff like that out. Like
I mean it's very. It's really just that opening scene because it's that where it is, and the point of the scene is what's playing on the TV. There's like ads playing, and it sets up the time period. It sets up some themes for the film, and it sets you in that time. Because I was like, wait a minute, is this set in the 80s? I didn't realize that from the trailer, but it's not. It's just the opening like couple of flashbacks. But so I just wanted to bring that up because it was something that I noticed. Is there anything else to talk about before we get to spoilers? Because let's be honest, the spoiler talk's where it's really going to start to fly. But
I guess just 2 quick things I'll mention is even if like you do have I don't mean you specifically, but like someone that watches this movie, like even if they do have problems with it, I feel like you're still like thinking about it like afterwards. Like it's not like a bad movie where you're just like, oh well that sucked, and whatever, you're done with it. Like there's been a lot of people have been talking about this and writing articles about it, and I don't know, I think this is just one of those fun kind of movies where you don't just immediately shut it out of your brain. It sticks with you. Like I was definitely thinking about it all weekend, and me and my wife like we're looking up articles and being like, oh, like we'd find something like, oh man, they just said like this symbolizes that, and I was like, oh okay. So there's a lot of fun stuff like that. And I guess probably like 2 non-spoiler things we can talk about is just the like success of the movie. It's what I don't know what the final number was, but I think I heard it was like 70 million.
Yeah, 70 million was its opening weekend, which was double the initial projections, and I think it's like almost double what Get Out got opening weekend.
Oh yeah. So that's crazy, and I think it's like supposed to be the largest opening for a like independent horror movie or something like that. I saw some articles.
I did not see that headline. It sounds feasible.
Yeah.
But I did not see that headline.
Because I think it is an independent movie, right? Is it like a?
Well, Universal distributed it, but it's a Blumhouse production, so I don't know if that counts as independent. It may not.
Okay, maybe it was maybe not independent movie. Maybe it was like a original movie, like something that wasn't a sequel or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure all those have definitely grossed more in total because things like Paranormal Activity went on to make tons of money like over time. Yeah. But in terms of opening weekend, yeah, that sounds feasible.
And then just the last thing I mentioned is that I saw somewhere that Peele was talking about how even though maybe a lot of people have questions about certain things, he did say that he has like he figured out all of like the mythology and the lore and some stuff he left out or whatever, but he did say that he really likes the lore that they came up with and that there could potentially be sequel possibilities in the future, which I think could be interesting.
Us too.
Well, we
not to be confused with French. We.
Of course, yeah.
Uh, so okay, so full spoilers then. Spoilers for us from this point on, and this is where the real meat comes, because this film went places that I was not prepared for or expected, and I wonder, like, I do genuinely wonder if if I see this a second time, knowing where it goes, will it play better for me in the second half?
Yeah.
Because the tension and the suspense, the direction never let up. All that stuff was great. But Jesus Christ, this went places. Because the opening titles play over like just all these bunnies in cages with this, you know, big operatic music, you know, coming in. It's like, oh hey ha, ha. It's not that track, it's not that piece of music, but it sounds like that.
Yeah.
You know, the credits are coming up. So to the opening scene, young Adelaide goes down. You know, she separates from her dad and goes wandering out of the beach and goes into this house of mirrors.
One thing that I really liked in this opening scene, which I don't know if there's like a specific reason or subtext for it, but I feel like you never actually see like the front of her parents, or at least
no,
like it's always to the back. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, I like that as well. I think at one point he does turn around and look at her, but you still don't get quite a good look at it just because of the lighting. Yeah. You know, it doesn't, you know, light his face properly. That felt intentional to me. It felt like, yeah, I mean, to tie into the themes of the movie, it's almost like she's being ignored and is just seen as someone who's dependent, and therefore she's not part of their world. I mean, I'll just put it as that. But she goes out of the Hall of Mirrors, and we get this very creepy scene where a duplicate's behind her, because, you know, immediately I'm like, that's not a reflection. There's another girl standing behind her, and you know, she turns around, and then that's when we cut the scene and we move on with the film. And I immediately says, "I bet they switched." It felt so, I don't know. It was just such the obvious thing to do that I feel like I almost think the twist would have been that they didn't. like that'd have been more surprising almost at the end if they didn't. But you know, regardless of that, because that does bring in some interesting ideas out of the film of nature versus nurture, and you know what makes a person and so on. But so the film goes down this path where ultimately these duplicates that show up at the house and come in.
So now we're cutting to present day, and you know, Adeline's all grown up. She has a family, husband, daughter, and a son. She's
scared to go to the beach, especially that beach. But they end up going, and she gets scared that her son's disappeared for a few seconds, and it's fine. And there's some like foreboding things, like, you know, she sees the old guy with the blood hands that, you know, look like the guy that she saw, and so on.
And should mention that they're meeting their friends at the beach, played by Tim Heidecker and Elisabeth Moss. Yes. Who now I'm assuming we have different tastes in comedy, so I'm assuming you're probably not a fan of Tim Heidecker, but I'm a big fan of him. It's really cool seeing him in like a big movie like this. I thought he did a great job. Like, he's really funny, but also like gets, you know, once you know, you get some of the duplicate stuff happening, I think he is like kind of like weird, and he pulls off being creepy kind of well.
I have never heard of him.
He does like Adult Swim stuff, and then he's been in like, you know, some you know, comedy things, but it's definitely a very polarizing style of comedy. I honestly, I don't think you would like it.
That's fair. I
love it though.
I just glanced down his IMDb, and I don't think I've seen a single thing on the list outside of us, obviously.
He was in Bridesmaids.
I was looking at writer, not actor. Hunt. This will change things. It was in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, I think he was like on the boat at the end, like as the whatchamacallit, like the giving a tour or something.
It was a major role, clearly, because he was so memorable.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? He was the Reed Richards' stepdad in the last Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, jeez. Jeez. Yeah. Surprisingly, I don't remember that face.
But I think he does a great job as kind of like the douchey friend character.
Yeah, well, he's not, even Elisabeth Moss. I don't think I've seen her play this kind of just like, you know, alcoholic housewife who's really vapid. I've not seen her do that before. She's always got much more serious roles.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these creepy folks show up, and it becomes this like, oh, who are they? It's scary, you know. They get into the house, and they're sitting there. You know, they make Adelaide, you know, handcuff herself to the table, And the family kind of splits up, and it all becomes this game. It's kind of a separate game of cat and mouse between all the different pairs. Like it's all the duplicates chasing their counterparts. And we get some creepy scenes with the daughter, what's her face, Zora. Her counterpart Umbre is chasing her, and she's basically like doing this creepy smile the entire time, and she's got this kind of Michael Myers thing where she just walks even if she's running, and she always catches up. So she's kind of the slasher villain, one of the members of the family.
And they mention like earlier in the movie too, like that they want her to run track, so you kind of like you kind of get the idea that all right, so running might come into play here, and then it's kind of cool that she's running, but like her counterpart is just always like doing the slasher walk, but always seems to like catch up to her.
No, it's a nice little touch, and that's got some creepy scenes and some good suspense here or there. But ultimately, where this goes in the second half, and we'll go back and talk about specific scenes and stuff. We'll talk about the other family, and we'll talk about all that stuff. But I think the big thing to talk about is what the mythology is and what the revelation is. Is eventually, Josh, after they go through a lot of turmoil, Josh gets taken. Jason, sorry, not Josh. Jason gets taken.
Jason, there was a part where they were screaming his name, and I couldn't help it. I was like, to the point where I was kind of like, I don't know. Peele seems like he seems like a cool guy. I wonder if he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, there's a video game called Heavy Rain where at one point you lose your son named Jason, and you're just shouting the name Jason over and over. You've got a button to press Jason, so you're just shouting Jason, 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 Jason.
I feel like we always, whenever we do a Friday the 13th, that inevitably comes up at some point.
Yes. So, and she sort of, and next to the beach at this point, so she goes and she realizes, because the duplicate, she met her in this House of Mirrors. She goes into the House of Mirrors and finds the secret entrance that goes down into the and it's worth mentioning, the film starts with some text that tells us about all of the abandoned and unused tunnels in the US, and all the subways that are not used anymore, all the mining tunnels that aren't used anymore, and what is their purpose now, kind of thing. Which is honestly, getting into this movie, I had no idea there was anything to do with the underground. I was like, oh, okay.
I mean, the whole opening is really like, man, it's if you think about it too much, it's kind of like, where is this going? Because they talk about the tunnels, they show all these bunnies, and then a commercial for Hands Across America.
I know.
It's like, what? I mean, it's all well done though, so I'm like not thinking about it too much, but I could definitely see someone being like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, what's happening here? Yeah, where's this movie going? So she goes down there, and we see all these rooms, all these like classrooms, and we see the room where the bunnies were at the start, and there was a reference in the middle at one point that said something about having to eat bunnies, like that's what they eat. And you get this sense. So basically what we find out is that there's a duplicate society underneath the underground, right? Where everyone has a duplicate. Everyone has the tethered version of themselves. And we get some flashbacks at one point that shows that they actually act out essentially what also happened in the real world upstairs. It's kind of miming it, but they're kind of doing the same things. And, because when Adelaide and when Red and the duplicate family first appear, it's like, oh, when you had your first kid, I had my first child. And she's the only one who can talk. And that was actually the thing that confirmed my guess at the twist, because none of them could talk except her.
Yeah.
Red was like, what makes her different? Well, she came from our world. She came from up top. That's why she's different.
And important to note too, though, she's not talking, like the other, Adelaide that we've been hearing throughout the rest of the movie. Like, she has a very she's talking like she has a crushed windpipe, which
which plays into it, because it turns out fake Red or, well, I guess it's not Red, it's the real this is confusing. The Adelaide who we know as an adult, as a kid, strangled her and knocked her out, and that's why she speaks like this. So we learn all this, and there's like a whole exposition dump here where she says, oh, the government set up the tethered, and the whole idea was to try and control people, but they abandoned it, so we're just left down here, kind of thing. That was the gist of the thing.
So like I think they mentioned something where it was like a government experiment, and they said they could recreate the bodies but not the souls.
Yeah.
So basically, like the tethered there, these like shadow versions of the people are above ground, and I don't think they specifically, well, I guess is kind of what they're getting at, though, is like, they're pissed because, they're forced to live underground, and then there aren't, like, they're not free. They're like, tethered, like they say, to these
Yeah.
people above ground. They really have no control over their
Yeah,
lives or anything.
when you get to I think the main social commentary of the movie. I mean, the movie's called Us. It also neatly is also the word US, right?
Oh, I actually didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
good. Yeah.
it's the movie's about class structure in the US. It's about the poor, and it's the idea that, like, there's no reason why the tethered exist in the sense, why is there exact duplicates of the people up top, but the whole idea is that for anyone who is wealthy, and this family's fairly decent, he's got a boat,
Yeah.
like, they've got a summer home, like, they're doing okay for themselves. The idea that there's someone who's underground who doesn't have all these things, and the idea is that these people are still us, we should still be looking after them, we shouldn't be ignoring them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And the movie's about how the idea that the middle class and up are all ignoring everyone else beneath them, kind of thing, and maybe more specifically the homeless is maybe a more accurate thing, but the idea that
Sure.
they are still us, and that's kind of the point of the movie. So that's where you get to. It's kind of a Twilight Zone episode. It's kind of like a movie that's more about the subtext than it is about the actual surface level story making complete and total sense. It's about what it means rather than, how did we get to the point where we have all these duplicates that are exactly like the people up above, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's a bit of an explanation, but it doesn't go that deep into it. It's just kind of, it's a vague, the government did an experiment, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, if that bothers you, that's fine. But like for me, I think it's again, the story is so engaging, and at this point,
Yeah.
you're really, involved in these characters and what they're going through, that it's a good enough explanation for me. Like I can see some people being like,
Well, I should make
"Oh,
it clear. I don't mind the explanation, actually. I'm
Okay.
fine with it being vague. I think my bigger problem, what I was saying earlier, is that I didn't feel like the first half of the movie set me up for this way. Because by the time we get to this point in the movie, every person in America seems to have got a duplicate. And we have all these people in the red jumpsuits, like, doing the hands across the world thing as a statement to say, hey, we exist. Pay attention to us. And like, because by the time they're driving around at the end, before the big ending happens, there's cars abandoned. There's like families are being killed left and right. It's on the news. People are being murdered, and I'm like, I was not prepared for this to turn into like an apocalyptic event. Like,
well,
it just it was a shift for me in terms of like what it was.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I actually thought that was a big surprise for me. I mean, I think if anything, the bigger surprise than like, finding out that they were switched at the beginning of the movie is when the Josh's family gets murdered. Like that to me was like a pretty big surprise, because that was the first time you're like, oh, so it's not just the other family.
Yeah,
like,
and that scene is great. I loved that. Their murder scenes, and then the daughters. I then loved the humor of their teller attacking our main family. In fact, I think the funniest line in the movie, when Zora wants to drive and they won't let her, she says the line, and this made me laugh so much, I have the highest kill count in the family.
Yeah.
And then they start arguing, and Dad's like, no, I've killed 2. I've got the higher kill count.
I like that. Yeah, that was that was genuinely funny.
Yeah, that was genuinely very, very funny. And so that was all good. And obviously there's some hints, in that scene when Adelaide has to kill one of the daughters who's still coming after her, and she gets kind of vicious and kind of almost feral, and
she starts like grunting like the same way that the what do you call it, Abraham, who is I think that's the father's tethered.
Yeah, that's the father's
version.
tethered. Yeah.
Because he's the one that we hear like grunting, like mostly throughout the movie, at least, for the first time. But then once she has to murder someone, she kind of starts making those like similar sounds.
Do you know, Joe, this is weird. I almost think everything, or at least not everything, but my problem with the twist that she was switched, because I just got that immediately at the start, is I almost think if you just take that opening scene out, like, just give me her watching the TV, set up those themes, and then every so often in the movie, keep cutting back to her walking towards this House of Mirrors, and don't actually show me the full scene until the end, and when it all comes together, and then it might work better for me. I think because they showed me essentially the full, obviously they didn't show her getting captured and taken underground, but they showed me up until her meeting her tethered part, or her tethered counterpart. If they just didn't show me that, and it went there by the end, I think I wouldn't have a problem with that twist. I don't think I would. I think
Yeah.
because at that point I'd be saying, "Oh, that explains why her counterpart's different. That explains why she can talk. It explains all these different things." And then that opens up this whole other idea of like, well, she clearly became a fairly normal person growing up in our world. You know, that's why she didn't talk at first when she came out, but then she learned to talk. And you know, the real Adelaide essentially became kind of like the leader of the tethered because she was smarter than them, or she had more, you know, whatever. And it's like, and this whole idea of that they don't have a soul. You know, do they have a soul? Is that just because they're ignored, or you know, like all these other questions come into it. And once you get to that.
And I think maybe like my one, you know, kind of dumb, like a, you know, nitpicky question was just the, okay, so, you know, once, you know, they get switched and she's like underground and yeah, at first she's like chained to the bed or whatever. So, but eventually, you know, she gets free of that. And I guess my kind of thing was like, well, once she gets free, like, why doesn't she just leave? Because it doesn't seem like people would try to stop her, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
Like that, I guess that's like the one. And again, like, you know,
unless they kept her locked up for so long that by the time she got, you know, to let her be free.
Yeah,
I don't know.
If it was, I don't know if she felt some. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe if there was something where she was like, oh, maybe I feel like I have like a duty to these people or something, or I don't know if maybe there's something about that the place that they're in that makes them like, I don't know, like obedient to their, you know, the above ground people or something that
yeah,
I don't know. It's again, like I don't think about it too hard, but you know, if I maybe had one little like, oh well, what about this kind of thing, it'd probably be that.
I think the other big thing that people have a big, you know, different reads on in the ending is when we learn this, and it's because Adelaide seems to have forgotten she switched, and then until, you know, it's revealed, and then she remembers because she's kind of told. She chooses to kill Red, right? And like there's so many ways to read this. Like, do you read this as a sad ending because the fake version has killed the real one, and that's sad, or is it a good or is it a happier ending because she basically rose up and, you know, she rose out of the poverty. Go into representing the lower class or the homeless. She rose out of the poverty and she succeeded in having a family. And by the end of the film, she's accepted that she earned that, and that's why she takes it. Because one of the things that occurred to me earlier on is that I wondered that once they killed the real upper world versions, did they start to become more like them? Because Elisabeth Moss, after she kills her regular version, she starts putting on her makeup, and it almost feels like she's starting to get smarter slightly, just slightly. Like she has independence for the first time in, like, you know, her life.
Yeah, like definitely seems like, you know, she's doing something for herself for once.
Yeah.
I mean, my original takeaway, which was probably a little bit more of a sad thing, because it seems like a like almost turning your back like on your people kind of thing,
Yeah,
where
I can see
you
that.
know, yeah, if you do, you know, right, like yeah, if you do rise up, you know, instead of also trying to take people with you and improve the lives of others, instead you're kind of like, oh no, I got mine, I'm good, you know, like.
No, I like that take, because yeah, that's essentially it. Is that Red tried to bring everyone up. She tried to, you know, improve it for everyone, and that's, I mean, admittedly, they're killing people, which is obviously, but again, in an allegorical context, don't think of this as actual real people being murdered. Just think of this as and the whole idea of them doing the Hands Across America, what she saw as a kid, is to kind of show, hey, we exist and we can't be ignored, and we should be treated and, you know, remembered, essentially, not be forgotten. And
also I think I didn't get this at first, but I was looking at you know, something someone wrote online that I thought was interesting, was using Hands Across America, which was kind of like a notable like failure. Like, yeah, when people originally tried to do it, it was like at the height of like Reaganomics in America, and it was supposed to be this big showy thing that was going to raise like tons of money for charity, and then, you know, it didn't happen. You know, they weren't able to, you know, pull it together. Not as, like, I think they did raise a good amount of money, but almost none of it went to charity. So I think it is interesting that they have like this failed thing that, you know, the above ground people try to do, but then the lower people are able to actually pull it off.
Yeah, like either out of desperation, or you could almost argue there's something to be said that a kid who saw the advert for it thought it was going to work, and that then chose to do that. That was her plan the whole time. Because she didn't know how it worked. Turned out she wasn't around for it.
That's true. Yeah.
For finishing. So, but what I like about that read though is that it is this kind of sad thing where she's kind of gotten away with it at the end, and despite the fact that, okay, sure, yes, the tethered are getting their day, that they're going to be noticed. She's kind of gotten away with taking, and she's killed the real person. She's killed, and it's like, is this representative of taking over, or is it the way you said it, where no, she's got her, so she doesn't care about the rest of them now?
Yeah. And I think my favorite part about it too, which I think is really interesting, is the son knows, or at least you get the idea that he knows.
Yeah, because he's scared of her. Yeah.
Yeah, because no one else really has kind of been seeing this or has been as close to her, but he has actually seen these instances throughout the movie of her acting out, and then he was underground when she was fighting the other version and stuff. So he kind of gives this knowing glance at the end, which I think is like a really like interesting thing to throw in there.
Yeah. I wonder what that's representing, actually, now that I think about it.
I could I guess again, kind of keeping in this theme, maybe just the idea of like realizing your parents kind of suck and that they had to do like shitty things, like if you had if you live in a nice house and stuff, and then you realize like, oh yeah, it's because my parents like screwed these other people over, or if they have like a job that that they made a lot of money off of people suffering or something. I don't know, just one possible idea.
Yeah. I think you could maybe go at it like this idea that, like, I mean, this is maybe a bit more of a stretch, admittedly, but this idea that she's risen up from again the representation of poverty, that someone knows she's not really one of them. Like, someone knows she's really still poverty, so they're always going to look at her like she's not one of us. Which, again, it's a weird thing to say that that's what it represents, because it's her son. It's not quite right, because it is really his mother. It's not like they were swapped after she gave birth.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Or actually, here's what I think the read is, actually. I think what that represents is him knowing what his mother really was and what she really did. It's the fear that he's like her. It's the fear that ultimately he's going to be one of them. And maybe it's also sympathy, because he essentially killed his counterpart, because the counterpart was what was the name, Pluto. He was copying his moves, but in reverse. So he walked backwards so Pluto would walk out of the fire. He essentially killed what was the son of the real version of his mother, if that makes sense. And
I thought that was interesting too, because you could see, like, I didn't really register it at first, but I guess is another good kind of takeaway once you realize that they've been switched. But she did seem to like overreact to that when she saw that he was gonna be killed.
Yeah.
Which I guess, well, actually, I mean, I guess that's kind of weird, because like that's not like, she wouldn't have known him because they've been switched for so long. But I mean, maybe she still feels sympathy for those people because she knows she was one of them.
Yeah, maybe there's like a guilt there. Like, these are the people who she's left behind. So
yeah.
I think it's a critique of the class system. Obviously, I think it's a critique of capitalism in a lot of ways, and the idea of like, is this thirst to just get for you and screw everyone else and just cut through it. You make your life better and ignore everyone else, and that's kind of what Red did, or Adelaide did rather. Adelaide did. It's confusing because technically they had the opposite names to begin with.
Yeah.
But that's everything that Adelaide essentially did, and she left those behind, and then essentially those people she left behind are like finally coming out. So it's almost like the entire time, it's almost like, oh shit, this is my comeuppance because I never actually stood by them. Like, now that I abandoned them, so there's a lot of themes in there, a lot of subtext, which I really like, and it's something that obviously Peele does very well. And it's something where I think the movie might even play better for me in a second viewing, because having thought about what the whole thing means, like, it might play better for me on the second time through, knowing where it goes. Because sometimes I wonder about older movies that are classics where they go really weird in the second half, but for me it's always been the ending, so I just never think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I kind of like a big crazy ending, so it's right up my alley. I am actually really excited to see this again. I feel like, I'm so busy nowadays. It's hard to like make the time to see stuff again. Like,
Yeah. No, I get
I
you.
used to see stuff in theaters like 4 or 5 times. Like, if I really liked it, I can't remember the last time I saw something twice. But
The Boy.
I don't know. I would. Yeah, that was a 10 timer for me. But but no, I'm very interested to see it again. And what's kind of funny is we're using the Tethered's names, but you really don't hear them like throughout
No.
the movie. Like you only kind of notice. Like I think they do say like maybe once or twice, but it is kind of you don't really know that's what they are at first, and you only kind of know them with the credits. But I think it's kind of a nice like testament to how strong the characters are and stuff that you can attach these names to them even though you don't really hear them throughout most of the movie.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I think any other critiques I'd have is that the main characters, the main family, do feel like they have a little bit of plot armor at times, where it seems like everyone else is getting killed instantly and easily, but they are somehow surviving.
Yeah, honestly, I thought the dad was dead a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like I kind of was surprised. I was like, oh, he's alive.
Yeah, I will say like probably my only critique from a filmmaking point of view is that I think when he was on the boat with the his tethered, I don't think I was very clear on how it ended. Like I was a little bit confused as to what the actual action that he won with.
Sure. Yeah. Did he?
It was something to do with the engine in the boat, but I wasn't entirely
Yeah,
sure what he did.
yeah. Like I wasn't sure if he got like cut up with the like if he
Yeah.
started it and it was like a whatever the propeller like if
Yeah.
it cut him up or something. Or,
I just
yeah.
it wasn't super clear. I thought in the editing right there, and it was a dark scene. Like it's the only in terms of a technical like filmmaking point of view, it's the only fault I have in the whole thing is that scene. Is I thought it was unclear, but
That's fair. I actually think one of my favorites was the young boy and his counterpart Pluto. I thought I liked the look of him. He was like wearing this mask and you can mention like all the tethered are wearing these like red jumpsuits with a like a leather glove, which I didn't realize at first, but I saw some people pointed out might have been inspired by like Michael Jackson because she gets that like Michael Jackson T-shirt in the beginning,
yeah, that's true.
and then like it's kind of like a similar setup to I guess what he wears in Thriller. So I was like, oh,
Also, so that's hard
interesting.
because she likes Michael Jackson in Thriller. She made everyone dress kind of like that. Yeah, okay, I can see it.
Possibly. And then I also did hear the criticism though of some people saying like, where the hell do these people get like all these like red jumpsuits? Which I was like, yeah, that's fair. I mean, again,
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
mean, the logistics of it do kind of fall apart because you're like, okay, so you had these kids the same time as the real ad or the Adelaide had her kids, right? But I'm thinking in my head like, wait, so these people down there can actually deliver babies and have medical facilities and because when we see the flashback of like what was happening underneath during the opening scene as she was on the boardwalk, right? It's like they're just miming things out. It's like they're just like acting things out without doing any of it, right?
yeah.
So I'm like, so what's childbirth like down there? Like, what's happening?
Well, so this is actually something I was thinking about for a while. When they first get the family all together and the tethered like light the fire and Red starts talking
The
and
fire rises. Yes.
yeah she kind of starts almost like acting like it's a fairy tale, like she says like once upon a time, and then like she mentions how basically I think she says like there was a princess with a shadow, and then every time something good happened for the princess, something bad would happen to the shadow. Like, oh, for Christmas, the princess got all these wonderful toys, while the shadow got like sharp objects. And she mentions like, oh, the princess gave birth to beautiful children, and then I think she says like, well, we had to have like our babies ripped out of us or cut out of us, like something along those lines, which made me think like, okay, yeah, is it maybe not like a natural birth thing where like they do have children, but maybe it's like some weird like painful process that they have to go through.
Yeah. I think it's because I love these types of mysteries. I love things like Lost. I love the people hate the J.J. Abrams mystery box. I like it, right? This is almost the sort of thing where they give us so much of it though that you can start to like sort of like poke holes in it, and you can start to say, but but this and that, and you know, you're saying the whole society of people are living underground in secret, and like, and that's fine. It's fine in terms of the movie, but you do start to, and I think that's where you have to look at a movie like this and say it's not about it logically all clicking together and making sense. I think for me, my problem with the last chunk of the movie, even though it's really well directed, even though there's a lot of parts in it that I really, really like, it just doesn't feel like it quite clicks together for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, something felt just a little bit off, I guess is how I'd describe it. And then the twist being exactly what I guessed in the very opening scene, just kind of like, oh, okay, they're doing it now. All right,
yeah,
cool. But I mean, it's still a good movie. Like I still rate it favorably. We'll do that soon, of course. And direction's fantastic. It makes me excited for more Jordan Peele stuff. You know. So.
You know what one thing I was thinking about too is I think there were plenty of creepy stuff, but I don't think it was like necessarily a very gory movie. But I did feel like a lot of tension because of like these killers like constantly brandishing like their these long sharp scissors. Which another thing I thought was interesting. I saw someone brought up the idea of scissors as a weapon because they're two identical parts that are attached together but used to divide. So I was like, oh, definitely didn't catch that when I watched it, but that's pretty cool. But like, yeah, you don't really see like a ton of gore or anything, but it still feels very effectively creepy with the way it's shot and
it's more
when stuff does happen. It's
more suspenseful than gory. And there's some great horror scenes in here. I mean, it's full of them, to be honest. It's like sometimes I like horror movies to be simpler, and this is not simple. This goes off the rails with what it's doing. Like it's like all these underground people. It's going apocalyptic, and I don't know if it's just my expectations or it's just not what I wanted from the end of the story. But it might play better because all the subtext is there, and I've enjoyed dissecting that. I've enjoyed talking about what it means and what it's trying to say. I think Peele's a great director. I think he's a great writer to a point. I think what I want to see from him in terms of improvement is just making his subtext and the surface level plot just marry just a little bit better. And just make them fuse in a way that makes it the perfect horror movie. And I'll be delighted. That's what I think. That's the room for improvement, I think. But otherwise, he's very talented.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, one of the biggest compliments I can give it is that after I left, I was just like, man, I cannot wait to see what he does next. And like, I mean, I was already pretty excited for the Twilight Zone, but now I'm like jonesing for it. Like, oh my god, I can't wait. And then like, it seems like he really, really loves horror. I think he even tweeted out that I don't know if a lot of people are saying like that Us wasn't a horror movie or something, but he tweeted out very specifically like, no, Us is a horror movie.
It's a horror movie.
Yeah, and he seems to like love the genre and stuff. So I want him to keep making.
It's a horror movie in multiple ways. It's a horror movie in the sense that it's actually horror scenes of suspense and killing and stuff. Yeah. But it's also a horror movie in that it's actually about something horrific that's wrong with society. It's horror on multiple levels. So. No, people be fools.
Well, the eternal struggle, though. Whenever a movie is too good, people have to call it something else for some reason. But hopefully that starts to change. But I'm just like, man, I can't wait until like 20 years from now when we have like a catalog of like 10 Jordan Peele horror movies that you can go back and watch.
Joe, it's so funny about you saying that. There was a joke on last week's episode of Arrow, because it was set in the future.
Okay.
It was set in 2040, and one character said to the other, how about we have a Jordan Peele marathon?
Oh, really?
That was a joke on Arrow. So you saying that just made me laugh because that was literally just a joke. I'm like, whoever wrote that episode is excited about us. They're excited about going to see that.
I mean, normally I would be very offended if anything I said had anything to do with Arrow, but I'll give him that one. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Geez, I don't know. I feel like I was gonna say something else and then I blanked. But yeah, Twilight Zone looks good.
That does look good. We'll talk. Well, yeah, Twilight Zone's the thing. So are we done? Are we ready to rate the movie?
Yeah, I guess so. I feel like we covered most of it.
I mean, is there anything else you specifically want to talk about? Is there anything else you're like, oh, we need to talk about that scene, or we need to talk about?
No, nothing that I can think of. I mean, like all the scenes were great, really. So
All the scenes were great. Tim Vergilish 2019. Oh, it's definitely not just Tim Vergilish anymore. Are you going to change your Twitter, Timmy?
I was thinking about it, but I don't know if it's I don't, is it weird that like I don't know, I put more thought into like changing my Twitter than I did like my actual license and social security card and stuff like
In 2019, probably not. That's probably most people's thought.
I probably will at some point. I'm just lazy.
That's fine. That's fine.
Right now.
Yes. I've not revealed what it is yet. Just I don't know if Tim wants to tell everyone what his new name is, but I'm keeping it in a hush hush.
I don't mind spoiling it. I mean, most people probably know if they follow the podcast regularly. They know. Yeah, I got married last year, and then I finally, we've been working at changing our last names, but finally went through and I got my basically, me and my wife hyphenated our last name, so my last name is now Vargulish-Chow. So that's.
Joe, I love about this is I loved it if someone. I mean, let's say you go somewhere for an interview and they have your resume already, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, Tim Vergilish-Chow. I love the idea that they're sitting there going, I have no idea what sort of person's about to walk in the room. They're sitting thinking, oh, so he's probably Asian, maybe? We think? I don't know.
The thing that's kind of weird about it, that like the only thing I'm kind of not sure of is like, you know how they had that whole like scandal thing with Marvel where like CB Cebulski was using like a pen name, like an Asian pen name.
You're worried that people are going to think you're trying to pretend to be Asian?
Yeah, so I don't want because like I write comic books and stuff.
Sure,
so I don't want to put out a book and then have someone be like, oh yeah, they just look at the name and then assume like, oh yo.
I mean, I don't know why this is a conversation we're having during this episode, but I mean, people have pen names. That's not that weird. If you kept it as just Tim Vergilish as a pen name, just for that reason, because you didn't want people to mistake it and think, oh, because if you ever write a story that's set in China or something like that, like that would maybe be a concern. Admittedly, I'll think writing Goatman, anyone's going, oh, he's trying to get cred off of his name.
Yeah, I guess I know it's a stupid thing to think about, but yeah, I just don't want to ever seem like I'm trying to appropriate anything.
If CB, whatever his name is, never did that, you wouldn't even think about this. You wouldn't even think it was a concern.
That's true, yeah.
But because he took a Japanese name and pretending to be Japanese just to sell Japanese comics, like the samurai comics or whatever, now it's like, no, that's really scummy. You can't do that. It feels sketchy now. Yeah. But yeah.
But then I also don't want to be ashamed of my name either, so it's a weird, balancing act. Though I'm very proud to, combine names. Like
Voltron.
Yeah, it's fun.
Possibly you got a lot of, because I imagine there wasn't a lot of pun opportunities with Vergilish. What am I saying? What there was, because there was Vergulish. There was that.
Yeah. It came in handy like around Halloween every now and again, but that's usually about it.
Yeah, but now anytime you're hungry, you can make a really easy pun.
There you go.
You'd be like, it's time to Tim Vergilish-Chow down. See? Like, easy peasy.
There you go.
You get some puns now. You get some pun opportunities. Anyway, let's rate us. Did
Okay.
the tethered version of Tim get a new last name as well? It wouldn't be called Tim. It'd be called like Creek or something like
that. That's funny because we got our newest puppy that we got. Like when you buy a dog, like they have usually like their like actual names. Like if you get something from like a breed or something, they'll usually have like a name that's centered like around like a theme or something. So like the litter we got our puppy from, like the person that was giving it to us like needed us to come up with like some type of creek related name.
Okay.
But so our puppy, his name is Banjo, but his like technical real name or whatever is Banjo by the Creek. So it's just funny that you mentioned Creek.
Okay, I just picked a random word. There was no thought process that went into it.
I would probably, I mean, I use this for, I would just go by whatever I enter when I, start a video game, and you have to input a name for the character. I always use Goatman. So.
Of course you do. Yeah. I always use Bible89. That's my. Well, unless it's like a character's name in an RPG, then I won't use that. But that's my handle. That's what I'll put in things. Anyway.
I mean.
Yeah.
Oh no! Growing up, I was always like, no, like the character has to be named what the character's name is. Now I just call everyone Goatman. Playing Castlevania, Final Fantasy, Legend of Zelda.
If you play one of the RPGs where they put the name in the text sentences, if it's an older game, it's quite amusing if you put in something like shitface, and then it'll say things like, "Oh, shitface, it's nice to see you," and things like that. Anyway, Tim, we're rating us. I mean us. Yes, I'm a 10, obviously, and you solid 7.
In your dreams. I don't even know what that means. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this. Like I said, there's like some minor faults and like little details here and there I could pick apart, but in the grand scheme of things, I was so just sucked in and engaged with the characters, the ideas, the mythology, the cinematography, the music, everything about this movie worked for me. So I mean, aside from a few complaints, I think it's really good. So I'm gonna give it a straight up, are you ready for this? A 9. I don't know the last time we gave a 9 on this show, but god damn it, this movie is good.
Okay. I think my biggest complaint, actually, if I'm really thinking about it, at no point, when the teller first show up, right, and the family's there, at no point did Adelaide turn to Gabe and say, "This is us."
Well, I think, doesn't the kid say like something along those lines at some point, like something similar to that?
Yeah, maybe says that's us or whatever. But I was thinking, like, I almost like, I always do the thing where I say hit television show, but I almost wanted her to go,
"Oh yeah,
this is just like the hit television show on NBC. This is us."
I gotcha. Actually, my biggest complaint would probably be the dude who was sitting in front of me who just thought it was hilarious anytime the tethered version of the dad would like scream or grunt or whatever. This guy was just like belly laughing in the theater. It was so annoying. And I get the first time it kind of takes you off guard, so I can kind of see people being like, "Oh, ha 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 ha," but it's like every time the guy does it, like the guy could not stop laughing. It made me mad.
That's fair. This is a tough one for me to rate because I think it's exceptionally directed. I think the acting's great. I think it's masterfully done. I just think the story felt a bit jarring for me in the last half because it went in a place I wasn't expecting, and it felt really big. And like I say, I guess the twist, which kind of numbed me to that reveal at the end. So I think it could go up on further viewings when I go in and but I mean, I've enjoyed talking about the subtext. I've enjoyed all these things. I am going to go with a 7.5.
Okay. Oof. I was gonna say, if you go lower than a 7, you are insane.
No. No, the technical merits alone, the direction gets it to the 7. And I think that the story has some interesting. I think the subtext is great. I think there's a great cast of characters. It's full of great scenes, but there was a feeling that it wasn't quite right in the last half that just kind of stuck with me, that has not went away yet. And maybe on a repeat viewing, when I go in knowing what it is and I'm just watching it for its whole, as it were, as opposed to discovering it as it's going, maybe I'll feel differently. But 7.5 for now. But it's still very good. Like, I'm still excited about Peele's future. I'm still excited about everything else. It's very good.
I mean, that's totally fair. I wouldn't really argue with the points that you brought up. Like I wouldn't necessarily disagree with them. I think it's just one of those instances where, like, I see what you're saying, but it didn't really affect me as much, as they did you. I would be interested to see if you do watch it again, what if it does go up or down a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a Jordan Peele marathon in a couple movies times.
I mean, if we ever get to that, mythical point where we're just getting tons and tons of money and we can record more and more stuff, maybe we could do some type of rewind
Oh.
feature where we do some like second opinions or something. But hey, you gotta give us money for that.
Don't promise anything like that, Tim. They're going to make us watch The Boy again. I'm not happy about it. The Boy Revisited. Jeez.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. We're getting 2 boys movies this year: Hellboy and Boy 2. Can't wait.
I don't know which one I'm looking forward to the least. No, it's definitely The Boy 2. But I mean, Hellboy looks really generic. I'm not feeling super excited about that either. Anyway.
I think Boy 2 comes out this year. It might be next year. I forget. But
do you know what I think's funny? Every time I'm streaming now, like every so often, I'll have some of the viewers mention that Tim's saying crazy things on Twitter, and I'll have to go check what you're saying, and then we'll discuss your craziness on stream.
Who are these tattletales?
I know Tyler's one of the big guys. Tyler definitely, like, when he saw you say something like Hellboy 2 is the best comic book movie ever made, I think you said on Twitter.
I stand by that.
He's like, Tim's lost his goddamn mind, and then he pasted that tweet into the chat, and I'm like, yeah, Tim's a weirdo.
Tyler, we're gonna have to have a talk, buddy.
Tim's weirdness is what makes him the great counterpart for this show. He is my tethered.
My weirdness. Oh, all right.
Oh, you're saying you're normal? You're saying you're not nothing weird about you?
Well, to me, yeah. We'll do a poll. We'll see.
All right, that's been Screams After Midnight. That has been us. That's a sequel to This Is Us that they're going to do in a few years called This Was Us. But thank you very much. You can, of course, support the show and the channel and everything we do by going over to patreon.com/MailofUsTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month. And for that $1 now, you get a bonus episode of Screams After Midnight once per month. The first one was The Invisible Maniac, so you can go check out that. That was the first one we just did.
That was a good one.
So we'll have a look see. But you get other stuff as well. The $5 tier, you get to vote on a Streams episode once per month, and you can go do that. Obviously, you can support us by commenting and liking, subscribing, and rating us on the iTunes, your podcast app of choice. And if I'm promoting something, we mentioned Twilight Zone a few times throughout this. Me and Connor will be reviewing the Twilight Zone when it hits, the new one. Starting next week actually, at the time of record.
Yeah.
And we'll be reviewing that, but also just started is classic reviews of the original Twilight Zone from episode 1, which is myself and newcomer Tara. So there's classic Twilight Zone reviews up as well. So go check that.
And I don't know which episode it is, but I do remember Peele saying there wasn't an episode of the Twilight Zone that kind of helped inspire us. So
interesting.
It'd be interesting when you get to that one.
Yeah. So go have a look-see to these various things, and hopefully you enjoy some things, and yada, yada, yada. But that has been us. That has been Screams After Midnight, so hopefully this one's still up 24 hours later. So thank you very much once again for watching or listening. Go check us out on Twitter at Screams Midnight for horror movie news and updates to the show and other things and rambles and shambles and all sorts. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching the scary movies, guys, and we will see you next